Morning, everyone, and thank you so much to friends and colleagues at the Bennett Institute for inviting us along today. As Vicky has said, we're going to talk about GP practice and prescribing within GP practices. So we work at Primus, University of Nottingham, and we provide primary care health informatics support to the NHS, to academia, to industry, and to charities. Right, let's get stuck in. I forgot to mention my lovely prescription. I hope you've noticed that what we will be doing today is administering orally for 10 minutes. Okay. Okay, so how prescribing happens day to day within general practice. Now, there's already a bit of a theme emerging. I'm also 51, and at age 21, 22, my first role was the repeat prescribing administrator within my local GP practice. So when I was preparing for this presentation today, it was a real moment of reflection over what's occurred over the last 30 years. And I think the first thing to address is that it's not just GPs who are prescribing, of course, today. So we have our nurses, we have pharmacists, we have physicians associates, and we have applied health professionals too. So it's not just a kind of GP game these days. The other thing that's obviously altered is the point at which a patient requests a medication. So back in my day, it was a little slip of paper that people, patients would tick which medications they would require or making that request for that medication. Of course, now the vast majority of repeat medications are requested via the NHS app. The other change is that when it comes to the generation of the prescription within the system, obviously it's still, a prescription is produced. We no longer have papers and those printers going wrong within the practice because, again, the vast majority of prescriptions are sent automatically to the patient's nominated pharmacy through the EPS system. Another change that's occurred is actually the sophistication of the GP IT system. So whereas the prescriber used to be, obviously had to be very aware about past due medication dates, are we past the issue date, have the various monitoring and checks taken place. Actually, the GP IT systems are now handling this on the prescriber's behalf. And so that whole process is nearly completely automated. If it makes it through those kind of checks that the GP IT systems are making, when it actually comes to signing those prescriptions, it's an e-signature and it's just a list of prescriptions that the prescribers are then asked to approve. And of course, we have variable use repeats and repeat dispensing. So 4 different types of prescribing that are taking place within general practice. And this is what it looks like within a clinical information system. This is EMIS Web. Other clinical systems are available. And you can see that within this medication list, we've got acute, repeat dispensing, and variable use repeat. So as described, there's kind of 4 different prescription types. But what's actually captured within the GP record? So each patient has a medication list, and here are the fields that are available or exist within all patient records. There are a couple that I just wanted to point out here, because these are all things that you might expect within the patient EPR, but I wanted to point out around dose, frequency, and instructions, because that is a non-standard data item within the medical record. It's not a coded entry, it is a free text entry. So it obviously gives the prescriber the ability to flexibly give that instruction so that a layperson can understand the kind of dose, frequency, and instructions. But that can make it very difficult then to analyse the data that comes out of the system. Obviously, for most medications, it's fairly straightforward. If it's a statin, you know it's going to be once daily. But actually, if you're talking something like prednisolone, that can be really difficult because that's a kind of variable medication, and that may change for each patient and over a period of time. So that can be quite difficult if you're analysing the data, particularly from a kind of medications adherence perspective. The other item I wanted to identify here or link into is around indication. So in an ideal world, when a prescriber is prescribing a medication, it's going to be within a consultation where it's got a neat sort of problem title. And in sort of 95% of the time, that is the case. So that the medication can be linked directly back to the problem that the patient presented with. But that's not always the case. Medicine isn't neat like that, is it? So you will often find medications just being prescribed that don't fit into a consultation that's got a problem header, and therefore the indication for that medication is lost. Or, as is more common these days, particularly with the rise of phone consultations within general practice, we're sometimes losing that link, and that can be a problem, say, for something like antibiotic prescribing. You're actually losing that indication, the reason why the medication has been prescribed. Also wanted to mention about medications prescribed elsewhere, because I think that's really important in terms of general practice. It's not just what they're prescribing within general practice. It's not just a source of those GP-initiated medications. So we have a concept of GP to GP within this country, where your electronic patient record moves from your old practice to your new practice, and all your medication history comes across. The transfer itself focuses on your current medication and your repeat medication, and your new practice then has the role to authorize it. But it's a little bit hit and miss in terms of what historical data comes across. It really comes down to the individual GP practice as to whether they're going to reconcile the historical data and make sure that that's manually entered into the patient EPR. But there are, of course, lots of other prescribing takes place elsewhere. And we've got some examples on the screen there, where we're talking about a locality commission service, so maybe the out of hours or GP Federation services or ICB hubs. The chances are the prescriber has access to the GP IT record, and so they're able to enter in prescriptions in the same manner that any prescriber associated with the practice is able to. But for all the other instances that are on the screen there, again, it's very variable within general practice. Typically, they'll get some kind of message, whether that's a phone call or whether that is an email or a letter that comes into the practice. And it's really down to that practice to decide how well or how comprehensively they're going to capture that medication to say that it's being prescribed elsewhere. Now, that is quite important to them, for GPs to capture that information, because one of the beauties of the GP practice world and the sophisticated IT systems that we use is around these kind of background processes and checks that are taking place. So in terms of kind of patient safety, there's an awful lot of checking. The system is continuously making those checks to make sure when were the blood tests last done, have the review dates have expired, are there any interactions? But it can only work if the information has been entered. So there's something there about data quality as well. The medication alerts that work within the system, they work on several levels actually. So first of all, the GP IT suppliers integrate some form of drug database. So that's either going to be DMD, the BNF, or commercial lists. But there are also other sort of software applications available. So there are commercial clinical decision support tools and knowledge bases that may be available within a locality. And there are also locally built information models that can be put into play. I find this absolutely fascinating. It's a bit of work that we do within Primus when you're thinking about those information models around the kind of sensitivity and granularity that you're going to put into those. That means that is it going to alert for a large number of patients, or is it just going to be really sensitive and alert for the few that it really needs to? Because if you speak to any prescriber within general practice, the over-alerting is a huge issue. Thanks for the warning. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. John Robinson, who is going to talk to you a little bit more about the actual data structures.
Having just been given the 3-minute
The 3-minute, I'm so sorry.
Now, in the interest of transparency, I have to say that I'm 71, which is slightly worrying. So I'm going to talk to you about DM&D in a minute without hesitating or repeating myself. I doubt it. So Dictionary of Medicines and Devices, DM plus D. What is it? It is a standardized terminology for medicines and devices. It was developed around 2002, 2003. And prior to that, there was no standardization. There were a lot of commercial dictionaries. And in fact, the GP system suppliers still use commercial databases to manage their drug interactions in their clinical systems. It sort of slowly got used increasingly on the reimbursement side after 2002. But then in 2017, it was published as an NHS information standard and mandated for use in the NHS. Now that coincided with the time that we migrated to SNOMED, and so it's now become much more mainstream. And it's this standardization that allows us to interoperate between systems. It's this that's allowed e-prescribing and all the other medication data flows to take place. So it really underpins a lot of that. It's updated weekly, it's integrated with SNOMED, it's part of the UK drug extension, and that's incidentally only integrated, updated monthly. Does that give me, how do I get to the next one? No? That'll do. Right, very simply, have a quick look at the data model. At its simplest, it's a 5-box model. The boxes on the right are product packs, so we can forget about them because it's only pharmacists that need them. So if we look at the, sorry, you're all probably pharmacists, I'm primary care. You can forget about them. From our point of view, we start with a thing called the virtual therapeutic moiety, which is the concept of the drug paracetamol, or paracetamol and codeine. It can be a combined drug. Underneath which we have a virtual medicinal product, which is equivalent to a generic prescription, and then the actual medicinal product, which is like the proprietary prescription, or here I put Panadol, GlaxoSmithKline. Now, it is, as I say, integrated into SNOMED, and these red boxes are SNOMED concepts, and it's plugged in one connection only, so it's not properly integrated. We connect into the product containing paracetamol. If you look at the bottom right, you can see a box which is a paracetamol 500 milligram tablet, which looks very like the VMP, but actually they're not connected in any way at the moment. So a little bit of a problem with the integration into SNOMED. Just to tell you that I was lying, it's not that simple. There are, of course, a lot more tables involved. So each of the boxes has another whole lot of tables which you can get a lot more information. You can get the dose route, the form, the controlled drug status, etc. On the right-hand side, we see how this model is modeled in SNOMED, and the extra information is added as attributes. It's a bit muddled here because it inherits attributes from its parent in SNOMED, and it inherits them from DM&D, and we get a bit of a jumble, and that's something they're working on to sort out. I'm going very quickly. When you're searching for drugs, you're often looking for a therapeutic group. So we don't often say, I just want to look for one drug. We want to look for diuretics or something like that. So if you look in SNOMED, you might say, I want to have a look at thiazide diuretics. Here's a very nice UK, it's got a nice UK Union Jack on it there, term that says medicinal product containing thiazide acting as a diuretic. Well, that should be good. It has no children. So you'll find absolutely nothing. On the other hand, this one on the right-hand side is beta blockers. Sits nicely in a hierarchy of products, lots of products underneath it there, and product containing acebutolol, atenolol. Those are all SNOMED concepts. There are no DMD concepts in that at all. So if you search for that in SNOMED, you'll not find any of your DMD stuff at all. So don't search in SNOMED. What you need to do is search in a DM&D browser. Now here's one I found earlier. Other flavors do exist. And one of the really nice things about DM&D is that it actually links to BNF. So you can use the BNF chapter, and here I've looked at 2.5.5 for ARBs, and from that you can get all the virtual medicinal products and all the actual medicinal products for those things. And that's a really handy way to do it. And I'm going to shut up at that point.
Just to close, I promise, Vicky, thank you so much for your time today. I think the kind of main message for us is it's complex when you're specifying for drug codes, when you want to kind of scrutinize that kind of data set. the important thing to remember about general practice data, it's about issuing of a prescription, it's not about dispensing. Now, there is a correlation between those two things, but it is really important to understand the difference between it. On the slide are some thoughts around the impact of digitization of prescribing within general practice, and really just to finish on the last one, which is around data insights, because of course today and tomorrow we'll be hearing so many projects and studies that have involved the use of medication from general practice and the brilliant insights that we're able to get from that data. Thank you so much. Thank you.